welcome everybody to this week's Wednesday web chat. Since it's Wednesday, we got a chat. So let's talk about the writers on the storm. Of course, I'm taking some editorial license and we are working on the storm name and we're working on the song, Riders on the Storm. But more importantly, we've got writers and we've got somebody in the book industry in this session. So feel free to ask questions of them. There's a Q&A section which you should post your questions and see what the wonderful replies we get from them. So let me introduce our speakers for the session. We've got Linda Collins. She's the author of the best-selling memoir, Loss Adjustment. It's about the death by suicide of her teenage daughter, Victoria. Very painful way to get into this, space. Welcome, Linda. We've got Eleanor Lin. She's a regional counsel supporting the Asia Pacific Legal Department from multinational in the oil and gas industry. She's got a 4-year-old and she's written her book, Mommy's Guilt, to help new mothers cope with career and a child at the same time. Welcome, Eleanor. And we've got Cynthia Mak. Cynthia is a senior, has been in the industry for 19 years and is now taking a pause, trying to understand what she wants to do next. But 19 years in the publishing game does give you a lot of insight. And I think what she has to add would be wonderful. Cynthia was with Wiley, publishes business books and nonfiction. So welcome, ladies, to this session. I think it's the first time it's all ladies session. So probably the fun. But let me ask a question of each of you first to get the process moving. Now, if you wanted to, have you always wanted to write, be an author, and is the first book what you thought you would be writing? Eleanor?
I have always wanted to write. I mean, as part of my job, because I'm a in-house regional counsel supporting the legal department. So my work requires me to read and write a lot. So I have always been wanting to write something outside of my work. So this is something that, this gives me an inspiration after I got pregnant and then I have my child, and I really want to talk about motherhood. So that's why I decided to do this book. I wanted this book to be more of sharing of information of what to expect when you are pregnant, when you are, the care after the delivery and so on. And it's more on encouragement to the fellow parents on how to cope with the different lifestyle, the new things. Yeah. So I really hope that this really is a good encouragement for all fellow parents.
But did you want to write a book like this, or did you have some other book in mind?
Yes, I wanted to write about quotes. I wanted to write about checklist quotes, the quotes that I thought of, some of the stuff that my perspective in life, right? So and also about sharing of the checklist, like what do you need to buy and all that. But
so it's
well,
a very practical sort of thing.
Yeah, it's more of sharing the information. But I was thinking it's not it won't be a comprehensive book in a sense. Probably it will be a very short one. So I wanted to provide more value, more insight into when you have emotional issues, you should not pan out, and then we should talk to someone. Yeah, and things like that. And having a good support system helps as well. So I wanted to go into that direction. So ultimately, it worked out through my book.
It became this book. Okay, cool. Linda, I'm sure you didn't want to write this book as your first book. Very sorry when I read it. It was quite moving, and I feel for you. I'm very sorry for your loss. What would you have written? Because you took you got a degree in the creative arts as well, right? So what kind of book would you have wanted to start off with?
Well, I have been writing since I was about 14 when I had my first poem published in a national newspaper. So I've made a living out of my skill with words and editing. So I did that for decades. But, you know, newspaper work is really, there's a formula to it, and it kind of don't evolve as a writer. So while I was pretty okay, I knew that I could, you know, sell a story to millions of people because I worked on the tabloids in London and all that stuff. But creative writing is so different. So it's like going back to ground zero. And I don't know if anyone watching this maybe is more of a mid-career person, and then you've got to realize you've got a book in you, but you have to kind of eradicate old ways of storytelling. So I went 3 years ago and did an MA in creative writing. And that's when I wrote Loss Adjustment, because it was my thesis project. Because maybe some people don't know that a lot of masters in creative writing, you don't have a critical element to it. The creative work is the project. So, and you workshop it. So that is really a great thing to do. And I think, you know, there are some masters here, and also I know someone doing one through overseas universities. So that got it done. I was still working for Straits Times while doing it. So that was stressful, but you know, you've got to pay the bills, as everyone knows. So you just have to bite the bullet and commit that time, destroy yourself, put on weight, and get the book done. And I learned, I was lucky enough to be with some good poets in my class. So it really helped me evolve in many ways as a writer.
Okay, good. We'll get back to the process a bit further along. Cynthia, you're in the publishing space. You've written blogs, but is there a writer in you? I mean, does it help to be a writer if you're dealing with books and authors and the sort? Do they give you a bit more, you know, or anything, not acknowledgement because you are in that space, or not?
Yes, I guess it will help if you are a writer, because it's not easy writing a book. I mean, as Linda was saying, right? It's writing a 300-page book. It's not something that you just snap and that's it. A 300-page book is so different from writing a blog piece. So if you are a writer and you are in publishing, you definitely can relate better to the authors and you get a bit more respect too. But in that sense, it makes a perfect bridge, right? In what a publisher does and how a publisher helps the author. So I think it'll be a win-win if you are a writer. I'm myself not a book writer. I've written a couple of blogs and stuff. In the future, maybe, but where I see it for myself, it has to be something I'm passionate about. Like the two ladies here, right? They've written something that they're so passionate about. And that's how you keep it going, because you want to share what you learn with the world. And that's really, really something we should nurture and encourage people to do.
Okay. So, you know, what was the process like for you, for Eleanor and for Linda, in terms of how long did it take to get the book organized in your head and then to put it out there, and then, you know, from idea to publishing? How long did all that take?
Yeah, mine was more than a year actually. So because I mean, initially I wanted to do just the checklist and then, you know, some of the quotes and stuff, but it's not enough to make it into a book. So I really need to think through like each chapter, what should I do? Then I came up with, beside the checklist, it will be the emotional, financial, employment support that you can get in our society and the community. And as well as having a strong support system helps as well. And I also interview some of the mothers who juggle between career and work, so that to get their perspective and insight of what is it like to be handling that as well. So sharing the experience and journey really helps fellow mother. So for me, then subsequently I got to know Chinka, my publisher from Right Editions. He's very helpful to me. He guided me. He mentioned to me that what the audience may want to see. So I have to add some more information into my book on that. So I need to work on that. So it's like what Cynthia said, it's not really about having a book. It is really not like you can do it immediately. It's not that. You really need to think, and then sometimes you will just have nothing that day, and then sometime in a car, you suddenly think of something and then you write it down and all that before you forget, and then get back home and then put it into your manuscript. So it's a really fun process for me, and I really enjoy it. And then putting into a book really really helps, because I get to share with fellow parents, and then the feedback to me was it's easy to read, it's a cheery read, and it's relatable. I think that's very important feedback for me.
Cool, cool. Linda, how about for you?
Well, it's really interesting hearing Eleanor talk about her process, and I can see that your legal background, you're a lawyer, correct? Senior counsel.
Yes, that's right.
So that what a rigorous background you have in terms of structuring things and approach and your method. So I am the opposite, and maybe people who are thinking about writing may have even heard this already. I mean, it's a generalization, but that there's two types of writers. There's the plotter, who schemes out their work really, really thoroughly and has points that they need to meet. And there's what they call pantsers, people who fly by the seat of their pants. And I'm kind of more that school, particularly as my book, now this is probably going to sound nuts, do forgive me, because there's so many ways, even within these two things, of approaching it, but I had no intention of writing a book until, so my daughter came to me in a voice when I was doing a retreat, a religious retreat, 33 days. And she said, so it was non-residential, so I was still at home. She said to me, "Mum, Google creative writing New Zealand." So, you know, whether it was me projecting it or really, I don't know. So I went home and did it, and up popped this course, and I'd always wanted to do it, but I thought he had to be like a real writer. And it was for the International Institute of Modern Letters in New Zealand. And I went to apply, and they said applications had closed. But they said, "We're just looking at applicants now. It's amazing you contact us. So send us 5,000 words by tomorrow, and we'll consider your application." So, you know, I didn't have a lazy 5,000 words lying around. So I sat at my keyboard and I prayed to God, anyone, and my daughter, tell me what to write. And the words just came. And I wrote 5,000 words, and I submitted them the next day. And then a day after that, they came back to me and they said, "You're in the course." So it kind of happened despite itself. Sometimes you get these stories and they're just so, they have to be told, and it's more like you're a conduit. You know?
Yeah, sure. So Cynthia, for you, dealing with two different types of writers, which is easier for you, the one who plots everything and has a structure, or the sort that says, "Oh, well, let's do this, maybe that, you know, it could go this way." Which works better for you guys in the industry?
I guess it depends on the genre. If it's a professional kind of topic, something with more structure will be easier, because, you know, people learn in a sort of structured manner. But sometimes it's not fiction. Something that's a bit different and creative can stand out in the marketplace. So, but of course, if it's too way off on the left side, then, you know, it's too quirky for people, right? So there's a middle ground, but it's important.
Quirky appeal to a larger group of people these days. I mean, we look at stuff that's going on social media. Of course, that's just a small segment of society, no doubt. But isn't there that sense of quirkiness which seems to be bubbling up? Now
more than before, yes. And it is, again, the genre, right? The kind of genre. Right. And I think the reading habits of people have changed, right? Maybe when I started in an industry, when I was 2 years old, by the way.
That's a few years ago.
People love to read like books, you know, real thick books. They don't mind if it's a bit heavier and stuff. But now people are busier. For a lot of professionals, they don't have enough time. So whether it's a fiction or a non-fiction, something that's shorter and succinct is easier to digest for people now. So that behavior has changed in terms of the book reading market. And of course, with social media, the internet, you know, websites, bloggers and stuff, that has changed people's behavior in terms of how they digest content. But the big thing that, to me at least, that's bubbling a lot is fake news. I mean,
yeah, of course. That's fiction, right?
Well, yes, but you know, you would think that someone that you trust and a credible author, someone that wrote it, you will find it something that's a stronger topic itself, and you can relate better. So hence, I think it's important because anyone can just create a HTML website and sort of start writing. But why would you trust this person, right? Especially if it's a professional sort of topic. So that really, yeah.
So, you're talking about people with shorter attention spans. Is that something which the industry will have to pay heed to and sort of get writers or potential writers to bring it down to a manageable size as opposed to a voluminous sort of, Encyclopedia Britannica's worth of book?
Yes, we will definitely encourage people to bring a volume down. But at the same time, we also encourage people to think about when you want to market the book, how can you unbundle and break your content into nuggets? Because of the world of social media. I mean, I'm looking at myself as a reader, right? Sometimes I love print books. I'm a bit old school in that sense. I love my print book. I know E is friendly and I love NLB because you can borrow any books under the sun. I really love NLB.
Almost any books, almost.
Okay.
Not everything.
Close enough. It's a very good library, I would say.
No denying that, but they can't get some of the data, right? As in the article that I put up, right? How much local content is there? Well, I've set them on a task. They're now trying to gather that information. So maybe we'll be able to announce it down the line. But, okay.
No, I was just saying, I mean, I love the print book. So regardless, I mean, at least for example, my reading habit, I would like to digest small content. But if I'm interested in that small nuggets of content, I would spend the money to buy the print book. Or I've read the ebook and it's such a good book, I will buy the print book. So hence, it's the genre, the behaviors of people has changed. So it's breaking down things a little bit more, whether from your book perspective or just shortening the book itself.
How does this work out in terms of the business end of things for the author? I mean, you write more, do you get more? Write less, you get a lot less. I'm just being facetious. But, how does it work? I mean, and have the amounts that authors get paid, have they been coming down over the years? Have they been going up as a result of going digital?
Well, the going digital, usually people think going digital is cheaper, but not necessarily. Of course, it's easy to just change a content from print to e because the files are there. But I think what's become more challenging is how do you differentiate? So that's the biggest piece itself is it's too fragmented as a marketplace. And there's a lot of avenues for people to find content. So it makes it even harder to actually make sure you stand out. So in terms of how an author earns, I'm also a marketer. When we think about marketing, we don't market just on one channel. We think of many, many channels, many avenues to make sure we get our word out there, which is similar to publishing, right? You publish with a well-known publisher if you can, because there's some credibility behind. And of course, if you're looking at going international, it's easier. It's not that you can't do it yourself. You can, obviously. There's so many self-publishing routes, right? But when you want to start negotiating with distributors, international players and stuff like that, it takes a lot of time and effort, which that time and effort you could use to market yourself in a book. Mm-hmm. So it's that balance. But of course, at the end of the day, from an author to publisher perspective, the margins that they earn is mainly usually a royalty percentage of books that are sold in the market.
Okay. Was it worth your while writing the book and getting them published, Eleanor and Linda?
Definitely. I mean, my objective is really to share the information on Mummy's Guild. So there is a question mark here on my book, right? At the end of the words Mummy's Guild is really because Mummy's Guild, the topic is evolving, and more people are coming out to talk about this topic these days. But there are still a number of people still working on the day-to-day busy life, busy activities, and then you don't really care about your own self. So my question to the audience, the readers, is do we really want to feel the guilt and then make us weak and miserable, or do we want to share more on what we are feeling and encourage and empower other ladies to actually come out of this and then and provide the encouragement to all. And then how, like, for example, how do you, what are your self-care tips and etc. So for me, I'm really thankful to have this book published. Yeah.
So yeah, it wasn't the money for you. You wanted to get the book out. That's all, mainly.
That's my number one objective. Of course, if we can make money, is good. This is really this because this is not my main job. Right?
You've got a day job, so
I'm taking it more easy in the sense that this is really a hobby, and I really want it so much to write something about this topic, and I think the feedback to me is priceless. You can't really have a price tag on the feedback and the reviews from my readers. Yeah.
Okay. And Linda, for you,
yes,
how important is the money part of it?
Eleanor raises a great issue. How do you quantify being able to change society? Your book is making, life better for mothers. So that's Singapore mothers. That's a fantastic achievement. And for me, with loss adjustment, it was to raise awareness about suicide prevention. And I just mentioned that tomorrow is World Suicide Prevention Day. So I know it sounds presumptuous, but I can confidently say that my book has saved lives. And constantly, week after week, Singaporeans reach out. They find ways to track me down. I don't mind. They want to meet up and they have problems. And so by bearing witness, as Eleanor has done, and as I do in loss adjustment, it enables others to give testimony, to say the unsayable, to say the secret, even if it's just to one other person or the universe. And then once you've said it, that power is taken away over you, and you can open up more conversations. And you say, what good is talking about it? But humans have a need to talk about things, and when you suppress it, it just goes inward in a dysfunctional way sometimes. So also you can learn from other people who have experienced similar things. So for me, that was primarily it. Now, sort of a thing with anyone who's lost a loved one is that you like to say the loved one's name. So a selfish reason for me was being able to have Victoria's name in a book. And my daughter was Victoria. And to see her out in the world in a new way as a physical form of a book. And don't forget, a book has a spine, So there, somehow I still feel this connection to Victoria alive in a different way. So as to the monetary side, well, you have to watch yourself. You can end up then giving too much of yourself. People want it and it takes its toll. And it's interesting, hearing Cynthia's marketing perspective from a publishing industry side. But I think that authors or wannabe writers might want to know is that there's a lot of potential in terms of guest appearances, payments, and I've seen other writers go on to hold writing classes online now and make money that way. So you can monetize it in many interesting ways. So I don't know if Eleanor has found that, but speaking involvements. And but then, of course, with loss adjustment, we're selling the rights. So we sold the Australasian rights. So people paid for that. We sold the adaptation rights. So there are these aspects as well. With a book, you just don't have it as like one audience. There are all sorts of rights to aspects of it, like film rights, translation rights, which Cynthia can tell you more about. So actually, there's quite a few ways to actually make some money from your work.
Okay, so if both your books are quite international, I mean, the topics are not just local topics. I mean, they may be set locally, but they are quite international. So I suppose that helps in terms of reaching a wider audience, right? And would that be the kind of things that publishers will be looking for? Are they looking for more, books and topics with a much wider reach rather than just, just Singapore only or even Singapore, Malaysia?
Before I answer your question directly, can I just applaud the ladies here? because when they were talking about their books, I can see that passion in them. It's really great, I mean, coming from a publisher, to see that why they want to write it and how they want to share the knowledge with the world. Because I think book publishing, it's not going to make you a millionaire. There's not that many millionaires from a book publisher. There's J.K. Rowling, you know, there's a couple here and there, but it's not a money-making device. It can give you some money, of course, but it's not, you shouldn't put all your money in one pocket. It should be something it's a supplement to your speaking engagement, you know, to alter it. It's another platform for you, yeah?
So it's a means to an end, right? It's not the end in itself.
Exactly. And your question, yes, publishers will look for topics that's a bit broader, but also very importantly, what publishers look for is who the individual is. What's the network of the individual? Does the individual has relationships outside beyond a single market in Singapore? Or does it expand out to global organization? And now with social media, what usually a marketing group in publisher advice is, prior to publishing the book, the journey, you can start talking about your journey in writing the book on social. Because that's how you get your word out before your book is out. So do not start marketing your book or talking about book when your book is published. I think people will want to know how you started, when you started, and you know, when you share that, you get a lot more interest and people get attracted to you at the very beginning and they'll follow you on your journey. That, I think now with the social media, is a very good way to build the community of readers, to spread the word around.
Okay, so you start, how much in advance would you start?
As much advance as you're comfortable. I've seen some authors where they started as, you know, just blogging about the topics that they're writing and their journey in looking for publishers, and then how that journey looks like. They start from there. Or you can start as soon as you start writing the book, just giving nuggets. And sometimes, depending on the genre again, you can actually ask the audience for advice, you know, which way should I pivot? I think, Eleanor, you said you did some research, right? That's also part of research in your book, right? So that builds community. That builds readers at the very beginning.
So you're crowdsourcing for the direction of your book as well, isn't it?
Yes.
So I got a question here from Swiku, who has written a few books himself. He's in the property area. And he says that there's a tiny market and wants to know how well your books have sold and is the royalty income worth it? I suppose if you have to put aside the fact that you want to do it for other reasons as well, but if you put that aside, have the royalty payments been worth the effort put into it? So this is for, if you were to write another book, for instance, would you want to do it?
Well, I can say, so Loss Adjustment was published at the end of September by Ethos Books, a small independent publisher who has been fantastic with me and who won the Singapore Literature Prize with a poetry book by Marilyn Tan. So they have a lot of kudos and credence in the industry in terms of quality of work. So it was good to go with them. And thanks to their good marketing and positioning, the book is sold out already. And Loss Adjustment is now into its second print run. So not even a year.
What was your first print run number?
So I don't want to disclose that, but it did extremely well for a local book. So and it has had the potential to be read elsewhere. But I'm interested with Eleanor's book. I haven't read it, so I don't know how Singapore specific it is. But I think that there is a crying need for more Southeast Asian books on topics relevant to Southeast Asians and contemporary issues.
Yes. My book just got published at the beginning of this year, so I don't have the actual figures yet, but Linda, you're right. I think we really need Southeast Asia books, because before I embark on my writing journey on the information about mothers, you know, and the feelings and all that, and what to buy, you know, simply like what to buy. The books are all overseas, right? More in the Western countries. You get it from the bookstore. It's not so much on very local context. So as you can tell, I'm quite a structured person. So, so if someone tell me, okay, you need to buy clothing, my next question would be, how many do you need? You know, so I will ask more questions, because you will need to buy rompers, you need to buy shorts, pants, but really how many? And my book really go down to that details, like, because we have to cater for the mess, you know, the meal and the messy parts, the less glamorous side of being a mother. So it is very practical. Like I will give a suggestion, like you need to buy how many rompers, how many sleeping pajamas and all that. So it's very localized, because due to our hot weather as well. So I think it's helpful in a sense that that readers get a feel of what is it like, and new mothers especially, what can they expect. Like I go into a store without knowing anything about stroller, and the salesperson will tell me, like, what kind do you need? Do you want it with a car seat? Do you want it just by a stroller? Do you want it lightweight? Oh, that's too much information. So with that information in my book, right, I hope that it can really help the readers. And my publisher has very thoughtfully put a tab to the chapter relevant to the checklist. So when you get the book, actually there's a tab here that you can really turn to that page when you go for your shopping.
Is there an e-version of your book available, Eleanor?
Yes, it is available.
Right. So it'll be easier to look through that. So is it?
That's
could
right.
it be an app as well? I mean, for would-be mothers. I mean, your checklist could be made into an app, which would be very convenient, and that could be
that's right.
Sort of modified and customized for other climates, so that different sort of cater to different needs, right? Yeah. So the versatility is there, I suppose. Yeah. How important is the publisher in this process of writing? Maybe get Cynthia's perspective on it. The role of the publisher and the end result. How important is that relationship?
It is important because the publisher will have the experience dealing with different authors and different genres. And I think like what both ladies have discussed, right? It's a combination of what the author being able to explicitly share what the readers are looking for, if the publisher is not that familiar in that segment. But at the same time, like she was saying, the tabs that she was sharing, that's useful, right? So if you're a reader, you want to be able to do it. Author's perspective, if they can share that with the publisher, they will be able to think through ways, how do you edit the book, how do you put it together, how do you publish it, and what the outcome of the book will look like. So publishers comes along with like a variety of experience, dealing with different authors, different markets, what has worked, what didn't work. So that combination of that conversation will be very helpful.
So in terms of choosing your genre, say if you're writing fiction and non-fiction, what's the hit rate for potential success with non-fiction work versus a piece of fiction? I think non-fiction, if it's business and all, there will be interest within a community, and that could grow, and if it's well written and it's useful. But would the same apply with fiction?
Yes, I think Linda has something to add.
Yeah, I mean, you do one genre and you learn about others. So like, so now I was asked to do a love story, a fictional love story for a book being published by Marshall Cavendish at the end of this year, an anthology. So you do one and it leads to opportunities in the other with different publishers. But getting that first book done helps show publishers you can deliver. So a lot of people say, oh, I could write that book. I'm sure we've all had experiences of people telling us that, but it's actually sitting.
Yeah, but they didn't, right? So, and you did.
Yeah. So there's that aspect, but the publishing game, well, just from my point of view, trying to get Loss Adjustment published was really quite difficult because, frankly, suicide is not very marketable. Isn't that a brutal thing to say? Ultimately, though, your book is a commodity to most people who are putting up the money for it. So, so how do you get around that? So I entered a competition. We submitted a first chapter for a Hachette Australia mentorship. And so I didn't need to have done the whole book or anything, but it got shortlisted for that. And the publisher was sufficiently interested to call me up, and they did that dream thing where they loved the book and they took it to an acquisitions meeting, but they couldn't get it over the line with the marketing department because they said that suicide books wouldn't sell in Australia. So I knew it was a good book, but it was my topic. So that was a blow to me to think I'd written this book and maybe it would never come out. So then I sent it off to other publishers, including Straits Press, who wanted it. But here's the thing, when you believe in your book, and you have to believe in it even when no one else does. I do, as much as, you know, I'm affiliated with you with the Straits Times, and I love and respect Straits Press, you are not right for my book. And so I turned them down. So you know, I've turned down another publisher as well, because I just had to believe it had the right home. And with Ethos, it was the right home, and it was worth the wait.
So what was it about Ethos that eventually changed their mind about taking about, or had you not approached them before?
You see, with publishers, it's not just getting the book. Do you want to be your name along with the other authors? Who have they published as well? Are you going to feel that your book is comfortable sitting beside them? So like I turned down a publisher in New Zealand because they were a non-fiction, but some of it was like really, you know, it just didn't sit well with you trying to have a book that changes people's lives, you know. Whereas with Ethos, when I met them, they said, it's important for us too that you fit in with our stable of writers. So for me, that was a wonderful thing to say. I looked at their writers. I'm one of the few Caucasians there, so I did worry, you know, they have a very strong Southeast Asian identity. Will I fit in? Because I don't want to offend anyone. But actually, they were very welcoming. And so my book, even if I'm a Caucasian, my book is a Singapore book. So ultimately, the work felt that it would fit well with them.
Okay. Got a question here from Julian. He says that, if it's not wrong, the best-selling book series by far in Singapore is True Singapore Ghost Stories, which is true. I think it still is the most popular genre of books here, which makes 50 Shades look like Shakespeare. Should that be discouraging in any way to anyone who aspires to be an author for art's sake? I mean, should he be writing that kind of stuff, or should he be writing more serious stuff? Does the content matter to you and to the publisher, or is the publisher just worried about sales?
Well, for publishers, obviously, it is a commercial organization, right? So the P&L matters. So I think Linda was also trying to say that she rejected publishers too, also because, you know, it's a two-way relationship. But I can imagine why sometimes the marketing may be one-sided in terms of looking at the genre of suicidal that's not suitable, because it is a touchy topic to market. So hence, you know, from publishers' perspective, being a commercial company, the P&L matters. That's why the topic and the credibility of the author and the network matters to the publisher. And of course, how much you would put in an effort to promote the book makes a difference for the publisher. And those are some of the checkpoints a publisher would look like. And of course, popularly, I mean, publishers will look at if at the very beginning, if you have a sponsor, someone that's going to buy a amount of books before this gets published widely into the marketplace. So those are the things that a publisher would look for. But although I came from publishing, I was in publishing, the question that was posed earlier, I think the reason why you write is the passion that's in you. And if you want to write for art's sake, you should. I mean, as long as that's not means to an end. That's for sure. As long as you're not making this your only money-making machine, I think you should do it. It's a very encourageable thing, because no matter what, one thing that everyone, when I was in publishing, they always tell me, it's a sunset industry. To me, ask yourself, would you ever stop reading a book, a print book? My answer is no.
No, the print book may be viewed as a sunset industry, but I think the process of publishing, given ebooks and everything else, is far from sunset industry. In fact, I think it's poised to grow US $64.83 billion up to 2024. You know, so it's growth in that respect because people want knowledge, they want information. And there's a constant thirst for that. It's how you deliver it at the end of the day, right? There's so many, as I said, so many avenues for information to flow out. But you raised the point about Southeast Asian writing. Most of the interest in books is US, North America, and Europe centric. There is some in Japan and Korea, but the languages are kind of specific to those markets. Southeast Asia is very varied, right? I mean, different languages, different countries, different religions, different ones, different rates of economic growth, and so on and so forth. How does how would you be able to market a book into that kind of sort of very varied and checkered marketplace?
Was your question on how to market in Southeast Asia?
Would there be a market for books, say, out of Singapore into Southeast Asia?
Yes.
Or would it tend to be a bit more,
Yes.
or would you have to focus your book in such a way that it has to be have wide appeal?
I think if you asked me that 20 years ago, it has to be a global book. Something that reached audiences more than just Southeast Asia. But again, I think times have changed. People in this region are hungry for knowledge, and this region is in a trajectory for growth. So people want to hear more about this. It's probably not there yet, but I think there'll be a growing hunger, and it's a gap in the marketplace actually. And now with social media, e-commerce, etc., it's easier to reach people. And I would think on the flip side, I mean, there was a phase when in publishing, everyone was interested in China and India. And then it flooded market because everyone started writing with China and India. But Southeast Asia, I think, is the next place to be. So it's something that people will find as a gap because there's really not that many books from this region.
Yes, if I could just say, I'm stunned by the writing that's emerging. You know, now I get a chance to study Singapore literature, so the Malay, Chinese writing is just absolutely amazing. I wish there were more translations of it. And also in terms of creative writing, I was speaking to some well-known guy on the lit scene the other week about how he studied in the UK, and I said, how did the other writers there regard you? He's, you know, because they were quite homogenous British people, and he said a lot of the writers there were really jealous of me coming from Southeast Asia because I had so many interesting stories to tell that really were different from the ones they were getting locked into about, you know, middle-class people grow up, have elite friends, go to university and have a coming of age, you know, whereas there's so much other richness that a Southeast Asian scene can inject into that.
A greater understanding of this market is, I suppose, there's a hunger for information, right? For various reasons about what's taking place in this part of the world. What has writing done for you? I mean, after the process of writing and getting the book out, how do you feel about that? And what are the sort of emotional things that have gone through your mind after publishing your books? Eleanor?
Yeah, publishing is a whole new thing to me because I'm a first-time author, right? So it's very interesting. I mean, throughout the publishing process, how we do it, how I got introduced to Chinka, my publisher at Write Editions. So and we talked through the scope of the book, the manuscript, and all that. So it's really a good process, and I think the chemistry and the connection between the author and the publisher is very important because you need to see eye to eye on this because ultimately they are your publisher and you are their author. So you really need to take in their feedback positively and then see how you can give more value or information on this book. And also they will help in the design of the book cover, how the book is ultimately going to be look like. Because when we are new in the industry, we do not know about, we are words person, we are not a design person. So whether or not to add in the illustrations or whether or not to have it colored, what's the cover will be look like, how is the design and the structure of it is really beyond me, at least. So this is something that the publisher
so you learn
will
some
come
new
in.
things as a result, right?
Yeah, it's really something new, and yes, and it helps you to coordinate as well, because you won't spend time doing your own designing, because the publisher and his team already has done it for you. So it's just whether you agree to it and then ultimately publish the book, so that you are satisfied with, because ultimately you are the author. Yeah. So both must have the chemistry.
Linda, how about yourself?
Well, just quickly, so it's thanks to my daughter Victoria and Ethos, so many other doors have opened for me now, and so I've written a collection of poetry being published by Math Paper Press next year. I've got this story coming out in Marshall Cavendish anthology, a short story coming out with a new call and response thing. I'm writing for the world's expert on suicide, a chapter for his book next year, and I've now been accepted with a scholarship to study at the University of East Anglia Creative Writing MA. So all that happened in less than a year, and it's all due to some publisher believing in me and my daughter wanting me to write this book. So the opportunities for a new life are there.
Yeah, cool. Cynthia, for you, just want to know, how would you help somebody find the book in them?
That's a tough one. I think it's basically years of experience and really digging deep into what you care about, because that will allow the energy and the writing to flow, because that's where you want to make sure that your passion is part of what you're writing.
It's all about passion.
To me, yes. Once you have that, it's
easier. Yeah,
it's powerful. I think it's very powerful.
Okay, cool. At the end of time here, so I just want to say thank you so much to Cynthia, Linda, and Eleanor for being in this chat. There's passion involved in writing a book, and it's also important to have data depending on the kind of book you want to put out, right? So it's always good to try and unearth that writer in you and see what comes up. It may go somewhere, it may not, but I guess a lot of it is also the satisfaction of being able to produce something which you could put out there as well. And one last thing I wanted to find out, why didn't you, when you were facing challenges, why didn't you self-publish?
If I could just quickly say, because for my book, it's a literary memoir. So I needed to use marketing jargon, I needed third-party authentication.
Sure.
I needed the right people to say, yes, this is a good book. And self-publishing wouldn't do that for me.
I think yes, for me it's the same reason as well. I would really like someone to, because it's always something to confirm that the audience out there is interested in the book that I'm writing, and there's a demand for this. So I'm glad that I found my publisher who recognized the value in this and helped me through the journey of publishing my book.
Great. I hope all of you have had a good time talking with each other, and I hope some in the audience and those who see the recorded sessions of this will be motivated and encouraged to venture into writing their books and into the publishing industry. Thanks so much for your time, ladies.
Thank you so much.
The rest of the week. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.